Welcome back to Arizona Daily Mix. Thanks so much for joining us. We are all about kids today and teenagers, especially when it comes to online and what they're doing online. Joining me now is Katie McPherson. She is with the TheGurianInstitute. Thanks so much for being here. Always good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about what happens when the kids are spending too much on-screen time. What happens to their brain? Because for a lot of kids, it's like being on drugs, right?
Yeah, the hyperarousal of the brain happens with prolonged screen time. So anything over 30 minutes actually starts, especially if it's a video game, actually starts to dump huge doses of dopamine into the brain, and it starts eating away at the good stuff that we want to preserve, especially with a developing brain between 9 and 18 years old.
So we were just looking at pictures of a brain and actually what a brain looks like when it's on drugs. I mean, what starts to happen to it?
The dopamine just goes way up, the hyperarousal, so the brain actually goes into what a primitive fight or flight. So especially with video games, the dopamine's going up, the stress hormone cortisol is going up, and that is all flooding a beautiful brain. And then when they come off of the video game or the device and the app starts to crash. So parents see anger, irritability, really hyper-aroused, not able to focus or pay attention.
And we're seeing a lot of attention paid to the fact that many of these kids are becoming addicted to their phones.
Completely.
What do you qualify as addicted?
Not able to put it down, constantly checking notifications. There's a new term out called brain hacking, where app devices or producers of apps are saying that they actually code so that kids will start checking their notifications more, and they actually hold back likes and followers. And then the next time they check, there's like 30. And so then that time between checking and rechecking again gets shorter and shorter, so they're completely addicted.
It's just crazy. So as we're approaching summertime, kids are going to have more free time. We want to talk about online safety and summer sanity, not just for them, but for us as parents too. So what are some safety strategies that we can implement, and how do we educate ourselves to stay on top of everything, because it just changes so quickly?
Right. There's some really great sites, safesmartsocial.com. That will keep you in the know. They update apps constantly. I would also advise a central charging station. You've got to get a balance with your family of how much time does your family believe is appropriate, and then all devices go on the central charging station at an appropriate time. So if you're not home during work hours, the only way you can really filter that is with an app like Hour Pact or Circle by Disney, where you can remotely shut down your Wi-Fi or router so that your students can, your children can not be on all the time.
And sometimes you have to go to these extreme measures, especially if you think your child is addicted.
Right.
And your belief is that it's all about balance and putting these procedures into place now as opposed to waiting until summer.
Absolutely. There has to be a balance for their sleep, for their nutrition, for their health, and truly for their brain development. You want them out and playing, being active. All of this screen time is not creating healthy bodies either. So it's really a health and wellness issue. And it really takes consistent adults. We are in charge, and we have to take charge and be really consistent, because the device power struggle back and forth, it eats away at great relationships with our kids.
Well, and sometimes that communication and trying to explain where we're coming from as a parent is a little hard for them to understand. I mean, the brain is still developing.
Right. The only thing they care about is being current and relevant in their social group. Anything you're saying doesn't really make much sense to them. They're not there yet. So in order to be current and relevant, I have to be on all the time.
What are some of the dangers that some of these kids face, especially during the summer, if they are spending not only too much time, but too much time in the wrong place?
Well, I mean, all sorts of harassment and intimidation happens on these apps, but they're also being groomed and lured by people that don't have good intent, whether it's another child that's older or maybe an adult with ill intent. So a lot of extended free time means if you're not managing and supervising it, they can be in all sorts of places and start communicating with people that you don't know about, and or even just peers that maybe you don't align with.
So you always suggest to parents that there's some kind of agreement in place, right? Talk to me a little bit about that and what parents should do if they're not already doing it.
So kids have to have a voice in the use of the technology device. If you hand them a $600 device and don't allow them a voice in it, and then when they do something wrong or don't meet your expectations that aren't visual for them, and then you yank the device, then you create this power struggle. If you sit down as a family and you say, okay, what makes sense to us as a family? How are we going to embrace and use technology technology in this family, and it's posted on the refrigerator, then there's no surprises. There's no aha moments, and the kids feel like, oh, I had a part in this.
Yeah, and everybody's on the same page.
Right.
Katie McPherson, always a pleasure to see you.
Thanks,
Thank you
you
so
too.
much. TheGurianInstitute.com. More Arizona Daily Mix when we come back. Don't go away.